It's a freebie from Mexpeditiones, found at www.mexpeditiones.com.
Well, this was a former client whose check bounced, and so we preserved him here for posterity.
Yeah.
No, I was driving down the highway probably in 1995, 6 or so, when they were building the new highway, and I saw a 10-year-old kid. It turned out he was 10 years old. I didn't know at the time, of course. He was standing on the side of the highway going like this. So I said, well, that looked interesting enough to stop. So I stopped and asked. I said, what do you got there? Well, I got a skull. I said, well, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to stick it on this fence post. I said, well, can I have it? And he said, yeah, you can have it. So he gave it to me. Well, they had dug it up on the highway. So I called a friend of mine at the state police, and they came out, looked at it. Well, they took pictures of it and sent it to I don't know where, and it turned out it's antique, it's ancient, it's not a recent. So they didn't want it because it would cause them to have more paperwork. So they gave it to me. What it is it's a guy that, well, it's an 18-year-old girl actually, is what they determined, but it's somebody that way back long ago, people thought that, like, for autism and epilepsy and stuff like that, they thought people had demons in their heads. So they'd open doors in their heads to let the demons out. So what they did was, you see the tool marks all around this hole? What they would do was they'd drill these holes. They'd drill these 3 holes, and then what they'd do was, like between this hole here, they'd have a piece of flint on a cord. They'd put a little peg in that hole, and they'd scrape back and forth until they cut through, and then they'd move it over to this hole and scrape back and forth here.
This is while they're still alive, right?
Oh yeah. And then so once then they'd open it up so the demons could get out. What's the rare thing about this one is that this here, the bone grew back in, so this person lived after this.
To the exorcism or whatever?
Yeah, she lived through this one because this piece of bone grew back. Because, of course, if you're dead, bone ain't going to grow back. So this piece of bone grew back, but what they told me was that obviously she probably continued having whatever the problem, so she went to a different, you can see different tool marks around this hole, which she went to somebody else for the same treatment, and that's what killed her.
I'd go back for a second opinion myself.
Yeah, that's what killed her. But this was what, 1995, somewhere around.
What's the estimated
they said that
age
it
of
was
this thing?
At least, they said the latest known of that would have been 400 years ago then, which it could be 400 to 1,500 years old. They dug it up on the highway, and they didn't want to deal with it because if they had, Vicente Fox was pushing for this new highway. He was the one building this highway, and if they had pushed anything about it, it would have made that area an archaeological zone and would have shut down the construction on the new highway till they got finished with it. So basically the state police, when they figured out it wasn't a recent anything, it wasn't something they ought to deal with, he asked me if I wanted it. I said, well, I guess I could put it in my clinic for for an example or something. And he,
so what happens if you let people cut on your skull?
And he had it in his hand like that, and he just tossed it to me like a basketball across the okay. And it's been in a box in here ever since.
This information brought to you by www.mexpeditiones.com.
Mexpeditiones.
No, okay, Mexpeditiones. Pay no attention to my
There is a
Spanish.
difference.